Well, hello and welcome to my master class. In this master class, you're going to learn how you got to this state of overwhelm and why it's not your fault. I'm going to talk about the good, the bad, and the ugly, about adrenaline and your fight, flight, or freeze response. I'm going to give you some fast first aid, 4 easy techniques to turn down that emotional overwhelm so that you can have some clarity and some peace. I'm going to talk to you about why female night shift nurses are so much more likely than other people to gain weight. They are hardwired for it. And what to do about that mean voice in your head. I'm going to tell you how you can escape this cycle of emotional overwhelm so that you can have some peace and clarity so you can get up in the morning feeling like you can access resources within you to get through your day. So let's start with the fact that if you are feeling overwhelmed in this society, you are totally not alone. I see clients in my office and on Zoom all the time who look beautiful walking in the door, like they stepped out of a magazine, like they're having a great life. And then they tell me what's going on inside. And if you could see the thought bubbles over people's heads, you would be filled with compassion, and you would be filled with compassion for yourself as well, because you would know that you are not alone. That adrenaline has a big effect on your body, and I'm going to speak of adrenaline just as a general term. Adrenaline is something that is only one of the chemicals that we have, and the adrenaline response is something that is completely built in. We'll talk about that more. We're going to talk really specifically about what it is and what you can do. I want to remind you that what you see on Facebook, on the Facebook social media platform, is just that. It's a platform. It's just like a stage. It's like a stage in the elementary school where your child is performing the Wizard of Oz. Remember that what you see is just what people choose to put on their front porch for everyone to see. I'm going to talk to you about state, soundtrack, and sovereignty, because this is a framework that I like to use to think about how a person can really have an impact on making their life different than it is right now. And the first one, state, is just that. It's your mental state, your emotional state. It's how you are feeling inside. However you're feeling right now, you have the ability to change that with a few simple tools. The next thing is your soundtrack. And the soundtrack is really important. Soundtrack is what's happening in between your ears all the time. And if you are aware of this, you have the ability to change it. And I want to give you a little bit of an example. A few years ago, my mother was visiting me, and we were looking at the pictures in the hallway. And I had a picture on my wall framed of my mother when she was 15 years old, and she had this pearl around her neck. And we looked at that picture, and she had that rare kind of budding beauty that all 15-year-old young women have. And she just looked beautiful. She looked like she had her whole life in front of her. Everything was possible. And she looked at that picture, and tears welled up in her eyes. And she said, "You know, Kathy, I felt like I was so ugly that day. I didn't even like myself. I felt like I was ugly and that nothing good was going to happen." And she looked at me and she said, "I hope you're not doing that to yourself." And I realized I was in my 40s, and I was doing that to myself almost every day when I looked in the mirror. So I want to invite you to think about, if you have things going on inside your head that you would not say out loud to your best friend or your sister, don't say them to yourself. Your subconscious believes what you tell it. If you can't say something positive to yourself about yourself, then at least switch it to neutral, or at least switch it to something like, "This is really difficult, but I know it's going to get better." Or, "Even though it's been hard in the past and I haven't been good at this in the past, I'm learning. I have people I can ask." The thing to really watch for is language like, "I never, fill in the blank," or "I always," da-da-da, fill in the blank. Or I can't, no one in my life can do this. You know, I don't know anybody in my family who can do this, so of course I can't do it. Don't limit yourself with these thoughts. The way brainwashing works is repetition. Your subconscious mind loves repetition, and it works. So as much as possible, if you can say nice things to yourself, it's going to help. And it's not just being a Pollyanna. It's being positive. It's choosing your state. It's choosing your state of mind. It's making a conscious choice. You have control over your soundtrack. And the third thing is sovereignty. And that is just, that word sovereign means to have absolute power and authority. Think of a queen or a king. To be sovereign in your life means you are running the show. And I would like to suggest to you that you have the ability to change your life. You can change your experience of life without changing any of the people around you. And some of the ways to do that we're going to talk about today. I'm just going to give you a few tools. I have written 2 books, and I have a whole section in each book about tools, and we're going to cover about 4 of them today. So I want to tell you that people, the reason I'm doing this masterclass is, even though I wrote a book on migraine relief with hypnosis and on quitting smoking with hypnosis, I realized that nearly everyone that comes to see me in the hypnosis office or on Zoom, whether it be for smoking or weight loss, emotional and personal betrayals that they can't get over, nail biting, bridge phobias, elevator fear, all kinds of things, and some personal ones that I won't mention. There are all kinds of things that people come to hypnosis for because, as you probably know, hypnosis works even when other things have failed. It's a very effective technique. I became a hypnotist after 40 years as a nurse when I realized how effective hypnosis was. And I saw that in the hospital, in the ICU where I was working, we had a lot of patients coming through with alcohol detox, drug detox, chronic pain. And for these patients in the hospital, the things I was doing as a nurse weren't helping them. They weren't making a difference. And the doctors didn't really have anything to offer them. Western medicine didn't have anything to offer them. And so when I found out about hypnosis and how effective it is, it changed my life. So, but I want to tell you that of my clients, nearly all of them have some level of anxiety or overwhelm that they're dealing with. So I think that these topics are really important. So adrenaline, I'm going to tell you a little story about 2 cave girls. I'll call one Rosa and the other one Sourpuss. And they're in the woods, and they are on the edge of the jungle. They are searching for food. They're foraging. Rosa is finding rose hips, and they're red and shiny, and they look beautiful in the sunlight, and somehow she knows that vitamin C will be really good for her. She's pleased. She's thinking about the berries she's going to pick on the way home, enjoying the beautiful day, the wind, the birds, the warm sun on her face. Her sister, Sourpuss, on the other hand, is looking suspiciously at the bushes. She's looking for problems. She's jumping at every twig crack. She's just irritated and easily angered. And wouldn't you know it, a saber-toothed tiger leaps out of the jungle and he chases the 2 girls. And who does he catch? Who does he have for dinner? It's not Sourpuss. She was looking for trouble. She saw him a split second earlier than Rosa, and she ran faster. She's our great-grandmother, many, many thousands of times removed. You are hardwired to look for problems. In fact, there's even a term for it. It's called the negativity bias. You are hardwired to look for problems. And you can have a short attention span at times and be jumpy and irritable. It's all part of looking for threats and being ready to have that fight, flight, or freeze response. Luckily, you also have some conscious control over some of those responses. But first, let's talk about adrenaline and talk about exactly what it does in your body. And for you nurses in the audience, you already know this. It's a little bit of a review, but stick with me. So the first thing that happens is your heart rate goes up. Why? Your heart rate goes up because you need to pump blood to your large muscles in your buttocks and your legs so that you can run. So you need more blood because that blood's carrying what? Oxygen. So your respiratory rate's going to be higher so you can take more oxygen into your blood. If you breathe faster, more times per minute. And you also need to carry glucose to your muscles. So your liver is going to dump glucose into your bloodstream so that those muscle cells in your legs have oxygen and they have glucose so you can run. In order to facilitate that blood flow to your muscles, another thing happens. The smooth muscle of your blood vessels, your arteries, they contract, they get constricted. It's called systemic vascular resistance. And when those blood vessels get smaller, the blood can flow faster. Your blood pressure goes up is what's happening. So you can see that along with the adrenaline fight, flight, or freeze response, that smooth muscle contraction is contributing to high blood pressure. This is a little clue for later. Another thing that's happening is blood is being shunted from non-essential areas, that is essential areas that are not essential for survival right this minute while the tiger is chasing us, and that is your digestive process. You've got a lot of surface area in your gut that is well supplied with oxygen and glucose for all their processes those cells do to digest your food. But that blood is not necessary when you're running from a tiger. So the blood from your gut gets diverted to your muscles. And the blood from your frontal lobe, the part of your mind that's involved in conscious reasoning and conscious creative problem solving, that gets shunted to your muscles as well. So guess what? What goes on with your problem solving ability when you're in fight, flight, or freeze? There's no creative problem solving happening. That is not the time you can figure things out. And you have had this experience when you've had a situation where you almost got killed, or you were in maybe a car accident. It's a really great example. You had a car accident and you are so rattled that you might even have trouble remembering your phone number. That's a beautiful example of the adrenaline in your body kicked on, full speed, faucet wide open, and your blood is being shunted from your frontal lobe down to your muscles. What did I forget? Let's see. Also, oh, this is an important one. Your body is amazing. It does another thing with the adrenaline. The adrenaline initiates a clotting cascade in your body. It initiates a series of chemical events that make your blood thicker and stickier and more likely to clot. Why is that? Well, when that saber-toothed tiger gores you, it's really important that you don't bleed out. It's really important that that wound clot if you happen to survive the attack. So your body takes care of that for you. It's amazing. Adrenaline's a wonderful chemical. The problem is, I can't remember the last time I heard of somebody being gored by a saber-toothed tiger. I can't remember the last time somebody got gored by a mammoth in a hunt. And I can't remember the last time anybody came marching down the street to take our children away and kill them. We don't really need the amount of adrenaline that's being released in our bodies on a daily basis. We don't need it, but we are hardwired for that to happen. We have evolved over a long period of time, and your adrenaline has kept you alive, probably on more than one occasion. But here we are in modern day life, and we don't really need this much adrenaline on a daily basis. And in fact, it's quite harmful. That high blood pressure that comes from the increased systemic vascular resistance of the smooth muscle inside your vascular system, your veins and arteries, that high blood pressure can cause strokes and heart attacks. That thicker blood, same thing, strokes and heart attacks. And you know, there's even a word for it, stress ulcer. That's coming from stress. And you may also have had the experience of having some adrenaline, maybe in an uncomfortable conversation with someone, or if you felt like on the spot at work and you felt like your mouth was very dry, and you may have even experienced this feeling like you can't catch your breath. That's because in the moment, the adrenaline is just flooding you. So I'm going to talk a little bit about next, female night shift workers, night shift nurses in particular, and why adrenaline is really hard on them, why they have a bigger, why they have more of a, they are more affected than the average person. And the other, before we get to that, the other thing that adrenaline does is it makes you, not maybe in the moment when you're running, but shortly thereafter, it makes you crave sugar. It makes you crave sugar and it makes you crave fat. Why? Because if we are needing to run from tigers, then we better have plenty of sugar on board. And we better have fat because fat breaks down into glucose in our bodies, and that's the next best thing to sugar. So if we are going to, if we find ourselves, our bodies under stress on a constant or regular basis, your body is going to signal to itself, we better be ready. We better have that sugar on board. We better have that extra fat on board. So those foods are going to be very, very attractive to you. And I remember I worked in 2 large emergency departments over a 12-year period of my nursing career. And I ate my share of peanut M&Ms from the Costco-sized bags that we kept under the counter in the nurses' station. So I remember that feeling of just like, I have to have it. But here, back to the female night shift nurses. So I want to say one thing about night shift nurses in general. Nurses in general. Nurses have stressful jobs. They are hard jobs. You have to know a lot to be a nurse. It's not easy to get into nursing school. It's not easy to get out of nursing school. You have to work really hard. You have to learn and learn and study and study and study. And then once you get to work for your first job, you'll realize that all you learned in nursing school was how to learn how to be a nurse, because now you're going to learn how to be a nurse. That was just the background information. Nurses have a lot of responsibility. Ask any nurse. Almost any nurse will tell you that the staffing ratios in their hospitals do not give them enough hours. They feel like they have the responsibility for their patient load, but they feel like they don't have enough hours to give each patient. On top of that, they may feel like there's things their patients need that they can't get for them. They can't get their patients the emotional support they need for their families. They may not be able to get the patients all the treatments they need, or enough hours of physical therapy, or enough time with the dietitian, or enough attention from the doctor, or the exact right medications, or the right food even. Anytime a person is responsible for someone and they can't get them what they need, that puts them in kind of a situation where there's no good answer. There's no comfortable resolution from that. And when you're watching someone you love or care about suffer and you can't do anything about it, there is no worse situation in life to be. That's very stressful. And for nurses, add that on to the stress of their colleagues, other nurses whom they respect and admire, who are similarly having this kind of stress, like they can never do enough for their patients because their patients need a lot. And now add on top of that circadian rhythm disruption from night shifts. You know, you look around in nature, animals sleep at the time they're supposed to sleep. Nocturnal animals sleep at night. The rest of the, or nocturnal animals are awake during the day and are asleep during the day and are awake at night. And the regular animals with the circadian rhythm like us are awake during the day and sleep at night. But we have whole sections of our population that are awake all night. That's hard on your body. That's another layer of stress. That's another opportunity for adrenaline to just be kind of cranked up. And here's the thing about female night shift nurses. On some level, your body can respond to all this stress by saying, wow, if this is so stressful, maybe our survival is threatened. Maybe our survival as a tribe is threatened. So if that night shift nurse gets pregnant, her body's going to want to make sure that she has enough stored energy on her body to support that fetus. So let's make sure, your body may be thinking, let's make sure that females have enough stored energy on their body so that if they do get pregnant, they have enough calories stored so that they can support a fetus 9 months, so that they can breastfeed a child until it can walk. So just think about that. Night shift nurses have a tendency to be overweight, and it is not because they are lazy. It is not because they don't know what to eat. It is not because they are unwilling to exercise or do anything else. It's not because they don't know any better. It's because their bodies are biologically hardwired to respond to the stressful situation by weight gain. All right. So what can you do? What can you do about this adrenaline that's an overload? What can you do? You can't just sit here consciously right now and change the chain of chemical reactions that makes your blood stickier, more likely to clot. You can't do that. You can't sit here and change the smooth muscle contraction in the inside of your blood vessels. Can't do that either. Most people can't just at will change their heart rate, although you sort of can by your thoughts, but we'll get to that in a moment. Most people can't change the shunting of blood from their brain and their gut to their muscles. You can't sit here right now and change that. But there are some things you can do. Another thing I may not have mentioned that goes along with adrenaline and those girls in the forest that were running is eye gaze. When you are cranked up on adrenaline, your eyes are going to be focused on whatever they need to be focused on so you can survive. Maybe it's an escape. Maybe it's whatever's coming at you so you can try to get away from it. So eye focus is really an important part of your efforts to turn down the adrenaline. The other part is, one other thing I wanted to tell you. I'll think of it in a minute. Okay, so there's 4 things you can do to turn down the adrenaline on your own right now. And I'm going to give you a moment in a second to just practice this. Your physical body tension. You can relax your body consciously. And we've all done this many times in a yoga class, or just somebody's walked us through a relaxation exercise. And you can do it anytime. And you know, this is the other thing I was trying to think of. When you're in fight, flight, or freeze, your muscles are tight. You are ready to run. So just doing the opposite of that, really letting your muscles go, shaking it out, loosening and relaxing, softening your muscles. You can do that anytime. That's something you have conscious control over. That's one way you can manually override this adrenaline overload. Another thing you can do is your breathing. Now, this used to irritate me to no end in a yoga class when they would make us go through breathing exercises. But over the years, I have understood that the value it's immense. So you can slow your breathing down. It's impossible for your adrenaline to increase when you are consciously slowing your breathing down, when you are taking deep, relaxing breaths. The third thing you can do is you can change your eye gaze. Instead of having pinpoint laser focus, you can just let your gaze soften. You can use your peripheral vision. You can stare off into space. And the fourth thing you can do is you can change your beliefs or the stories you're telling yourself about the situation. So if you'd like, let's do something kind of fun. Play along with me, if you will. And I'd like you to just think about something that recently has gotten you really worked up. It could be something in the news. It could be conflict with another person. It could be just some general worries. But the last time you felt emotionally overwhelmed and felt like, oh my God, here I go again, think of that thing right now and just think about it a moment and let that feeling well up inside you. We're not going to be here long. Just think about that. And I'd like you to rate that feeling on a scale of 1 to 10 right now, with 10 being over the top, horrible, and 0 being everything's fine. Just think of that bad feeling, pull it up in your body, give it a rating. Notice where it is in your body. Is it your head, your neck, your chest, your guts? If it had a color, what would it be? If it had a shape, what would it be? Just notice that. And now I'd like you to find a spot on the wall, a little bit above your eyes, ideally. Should strain your eyes slightly to look at this spot. Find a spot about the size of the eraser on a pencil. And notice everything there is to be about that spot. Just keep your eyes right on it, laser focus. Take a big breath. Exhaling out stress, anxiety, and tension just in this moment. And now, keeping your eyes on that spot, allow your gaze to soften. Let your awareness expand. Engage your peripheral vision and let yourself notice everything around that spot about 6 feet in every direction. And just now notice everything you can see in your peripheral vision with your eyes right on that spot. And another deep breath, exhaling out stress, anxiety, and tension. Good. And now keeping your eyes on that spot, but no longer laser focused, still engaging your peripheral vision, allow your awareness to expand to the walls of the room, to the ceiling, and to the floor. Take another deep breath, exhaling out stress, anxiety, and tension. Good. And now, this time, allow your awareness to expand to the space above the ceiling, beyond the walls, into the deep earth. Another deep breath, exhaling out stress, anxiety, and tension. And now allow yourself to expand your awareness up, out of the room, out of the building, up over your city. Look down at your city, up higher, looking down at the continent, and out further still. So you're looking at the planet, the blue marble. You've seen the photos. Just notice how small you feel and how comforting that is. And then when you're ready, come back to your spot and close your eyes and enjoy the immensity of that dark space behind your eyes, the comfort there. And I'd like you to think for a moment that every feeling you've ever had in your life, it has a neural pathway in your brain. It's like a neural pathway is just one nerve cell to the next, to the next, to the next. And a thought or an image or a belief might ignite an emotion that travels along that neural pathway in your brain and gives you a feeling. And you have many of these. You have a whole stack of these in your brain that you've experienced. And even if you've only experienced an emotion one time in your life, you have a neural pathway that is that emotion. And so some of these emotions might be fear, embarrassment, anger, overwhelm. Perhaps you've got boredom, fatigue, guilt, blame, frustration, excitement, joy, the feeling of being so creative and of figuring something out. Every one of those feelings has a neural pathway in your brain. Some of those neural pathways are more heavily trodden. You might think about those emotions and think, which emotions have I experienced several times this week? Which emotions do I hardly ever experience? I want to point out to you that you have control over this. You can make some choices here. So imagine that all of these different emotions that you have in your brain are kind of like kids in a classroom. So imagine right now a classroom with 50 or 60 kids in it. Each of these kids represents one of the emotions in your brain. I am not suggesting you have multiple personality disorder. I am just suggesting that there's a part of us that wants to get up in the morning and there's a part of us that wants to sleep in. There's a part of us that wants to have a second piece of chocolate cake. and a part of us that wants to be slim and trim and feel good in our clothes. And so in this classroom, there's the loud kid who just makes noise at any provocation and knocks things over and is always getting into trouble, irritating other people. And then there's the kid that is quiet and just sits back and watches things. There's the fun-loving, silly kid who just wants to have fun. There's the kid that wants to get along with everybody and is always thinking of thoughtful things to do for other kids. There's the quiet problem-solving kid. And then there's a kid that's very resourceful. And this is the resilient kid. And the resilient kid remembers that there have been other times in her life that she did really hard things and she got through them. And she knows that she's really good at figuring things out. But the thing about this classroom is, it's a very special thing about this classroom. Only one kid can be in front of the classroom at any given time. And only one kid can speak out of your mouth. And you get to decide, who will it be today? Will it be that kid that just erupts at anything? Will it be that kid that just wants to have fun for the afternoon? Will it be the kid that's a resourceful problem solver, that's calm and that can think of creative ways out of difficult situations? Now I'd like you to imagine for a moment that you took a walk through some beautiful woods. Birds are in the treetops and you can hear them. The pathway is easy to walk on, strewn with pine needles and pine cones and little sticks. You can feel the warm sun on your face. The air smells good and you can feel that the sea is ahead of you. And as you go through the forest a little more and turn a corner, there it is, you see the ocean. The beach is beautiful and there's no one there. You're walking along the beach. Maybe you can feel the sand under your bare feet, or you might even feel the cool water between your toes. You're just walking on this beach, and then you see that there's someone up ahead on this beach, and you realize as you're getting closer that this person looks like you, the older version of you. And as you get even closer, you know inside you, every part of you, you realize this is the 90-year-old version of yourself. You feel happy just looking at her face, and you can tell that she is absolutely overjoyed to see you. And you embrace. And she has some advice for you right now today. She has some advice for you. She knows what it's like to feel completely overwhelmed. She remembers what it was like in 2020 to feel completely overwhelmed, to feel at the mercy of your emotions, to feel like things were out of control at times, to feel lonely and isolated in your troubles. And she's got some advice for you. Just listen to what she has to say. She might be reminding you of other times in your life when you got through difficult things. There have been other times in your life when you had situations that you did not believe that you could even survive. Things might have been so hard. You might have had responsibilities for older people in your family. You might have been struggling to establish yourself in your career, find a place to live. You might have had children to take care of. You might have these problems right now. You might be worried about what's going to happen next. But she's reminding you that you have a deep well of resources within you that you can access very easily. And now you have 4 tools to help you do just that. You know that you have conscious control over your muscle tension. And you have conscious control over your breathing. You have conscious control over your eye gaze. You can soften that gaze. You can stare off into space. And you have control over the story you're telling yourself in the moment and which kid you're allowing to be at the front of the classroom and speak through your mouth. Now, if you're multitasking right now, or if you are listening to this in the background, turn it off. Do yourself a favor. Go buy something you like on Amazon. Go make yourself a snack. Life is so short. Don't waste it. Annie Lamont, who's a writer, has a quote that I love, and I'm going to read it to you. She said, "Oh my God, what if you woke up someday and you were 65 or 75 and you never got your memoir or your novel written? Or you never went in all those warm pools and oceans all those years because you had jiggly thighs or because you had a nice big comfortable tummy? Or you were so strung out on perfectionism and people pleasing that you forgot to have a nice big juicy creative life full of imagination and radical silliness and staring off into space like when you were a kid? It's going to break your heart. Don't let that happen to you." And so I want to leave you with this. I know your life is busy. You may have more things than you think you can manage. You may feel like you don't want to change anything right now, that you can't. You may not believe that you can change. But you owe it to yourself to think about these things and decide, do you want to keep living like this? Insanity is defined as doing the same thing and expecting a different outcome. If you always do what you've always done, you'll always get what you've always got. That is absolutely the truth. You don't have to feel like you're a victim of emotional overwhelm. You do not have to feel like you are going to have panic and tears bubbling up in your body at any time. You don't have to do that. You can learn to exercise control over your state, over your soundtrack, and you can increase the sovereignty in your own life. And you should do these things. If you would like help with this, give me a call. I'm available to help you. I can talk to you. If I think that I can help you after a 30-minute conversation, I will let you know. And if I think I can't help you, I'll let you know that too. You can sign up for a time to talk with me on my website, salishhypnosis.com, SALISHSEA. Hypnosis is HYPNOSIS, it's all one word, or the links below this video. Feel free to call me if you want to talk. Life is so short. It can be so much more wonderful than it is now. Just call me. Stay safe. Be well. It's been a pleasure talking to you today. Thank you so much.